When it comes to linear actuators, much like this unit you see right here, the application of use can be seemingly endless. Folks can use them for opening and shutting gates. You can use them for raising and lowering beds or chairs or even desks if you want to have them raised up, or raising and lowering the front plow on the front of your tractor for snow season. But when it comes to wiring these things, the applications can be just seemingly as endless. You have digital controllers, logic controllers, even Bluetooth controllers. And sometimes whenever it comes to that, those are applications that you might have to special order, and if anything was to actually fail, you might be sitting with a bit of downtime. And for an off-road trailer like this, I don't have downtime whenever I'm off-grid. So I wanted an application that was inexpensive for one, easily replaceable with readily available parts that I can go to any store, and be pretty much foolproof. And that's exactly what I've done here. So if your situation is basically wanting to extend and retract your actuator, just like I've shown here, and by switching the other way, it starts to go down, then this is the video for you. And the answer is relays. It's super simple. I'm gonna go through the whole process. Now, if you also have a Smittybilt Scout trailer and you wanna understand how I configured 4 linear actuators all the way around for raising and lowering the rooftop tent on our trailer, this is also the video for you. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to the Gator Overland Channel. I'm John. In today's video, I'm super excited to share with you our method of choice for wiring our linear actuators. So it's not going to be a digital controller, it's not going to be Bluetooth, it's going to be readily available, inexpensive products you can get at any hardware store, any auto parts store. That way, if anything was to fail, you can go directly to that store, pick up the part, swap it out. You don't have to worry about special ordering anything. Now, you can get fancy with doing these things, but we're trying to keep it simple. If that's your method, situation of just wanting to raise and lower, then this is definitely the video for you. I scoured the internet trying to find ways to wire for this, and they have special switches for doing this, but they're expensive, and again, you can't just get them at the parts store. I wish they were available, but they're not. So I actually found all this stuff on a forum. It wasn't exactly in the same configuration, but I was able to switch things around, and it applied to exactly what I wanted to do, and that's why I'm excited to share about it with you. So what we have is 2 5-pin relays here that we're going to use for cross polarity for going up and down. We're going to use a new innovative way of wiring. Gone are the days of butt connectors. There are now what's called lever connectors or Wago connectors. Allows you to flip up the connector, slide in the wire, flip it down, good to go. All the way from 28 gauge all the way up to the thickness of 12 gauge, which is really awesome. Literally plug and play throughout this whole thing. In fact, the only crimp connections that I did was for the battery terminal connections and these right here on this switch. So literally plug and play. So as I know that most of you are probably watching this for the purposes of just the wiring, I'm going to do the wiring portion up front. That way you can watch that part and go on with your project. And some of you are going to be here for understanding how I did all this configuration to the Smittybilt Scout trailer. So for your viewing convenience, this video is timestamped, allowing you to go to any point in this video without having to scroll through. Don't forget to check the description below, as I'll have a full list of products for Amazon affiliate links, allowing you to go select, and I'll have my storefront link down there. There's going to be a page dedicated to specifically this build. All you have to do is hit the quantities, put it in a shopping cart, you'll be good to go. Don't forget to check the description below. I'll also have contact information should you need to get a hold of me about anything, whether it's this video or any other videos. And I'll also have a Dropbox links for being able to see all the PDFs that I have developed for this, for the wiring, whether it be for the box or for the trailer itself. So stick around. It might take me a second to get along, but I promise it's going to be as much information you need to know in the shortest amount of time that I can explain it. Stay tuned. All right, tools and materials. Everything you see here is at least, but not limited to, what is required to make this project happen. Now, this might look a little overwhelming at first, but it's actually all the wiring stuff here and all the hardware stuff for mounting everything to the side of the trailer. So some of y'all only need to focus on this stuff, and some of y'all, here's the whole shebang right here. So I only want to touch on a few things up front, and one of them is going to be the innovative lever connectors or Wago connectors. What's really cool, on the back side it has an indentation, allows you to pre-measure where to chafe off the wiring, and then you can put it right in. What I've done is I've put a corresponding mark, a little silver dot right there, allowing me to just quickly go through, put it at the dot, trim it off, and then it's ready to go into the lever connector. And it's as simple as pushing it in, pushing down the lever, and you have a positive, solid connection right there. I did take an additional measure and put electrical tape on it after everything was wired, just to make sure that nothing pops up if it gets snagged, but everything I have is hidden, so it's all good there. The wiring we'll touch on, it's going to be basically project specific, but I wanted to mention that. Now going over into your switches, you'll want a single pole dual throw. It's going to have 3 pins just like this. I don't have one to show you that's like that, but that's the kind that you'll need. Single pole, they come in a bunch of different configurations. Now for the actuators, I'm using a 10-inch. It's rated at 400 pounds of hoist or lift, and it is waterproof. I forget what IP rating, I think it's IP68. So this times 4 is going to be 1,600 pounds worth of upward force. The tent's 250 pounds. Our family is an additional 400 pounds, so we're well over capacity on the actuators for our load that's going to be up there. You want to go ahead and just take a 5 amp hour deer feeder battery, double check your polarities to make sure it goes out, switch it around, double check, make sure that it goes in, and you should be good. Next is going to be the star of the show, and this is the relays. This is the money saver. You can get these pretty much anywhere. I did get these off Amazon. They were the pre-wired kind, but any of the relays, the ones you buy like this, you would just have to get spade connectors to go on there. Now I have this 4-pin out here for reference. Do not use a 4-pin. It needs to be a 5-pin. You need an 87A. This one's already pre-wired with 12 gauge wire on the 3 colors here. Your black and whites are going to be 16 gauge wire. It's still within the capacity of what we need. It just makes things convenient for whenever you go and you put it in your box. You don't have to do any additional wiring. It goes straight into the connections that go out. Literally plug and play. Now one cool thing that you can invest in if you're doing split loom is a split loom tool. Now they do come in at a little price, but I use these all the time. They come in different sizes for different widths of wire, but it allows you to put the wire in the window, close it off, put it up against the split loom, and then you just pull it through, smooth as butter. Another really cool thing I came across are these magnetic wire keepers. You can use them for underneath your desk, for holding up wires for your computer, but in our case, our box is made of metal. This allows you, it's 12 pounds of force on there. It's enough to where I can barely pull them off with my fingers, and you get some zip ties. Not only that, they're double way zip ties, so you can actually retract them and put more wire in them if you needed to. Now moving over to the hardware side, it's really straightforward stuff. Drill bits, I used all the way up to a 1/2 inch drill bit. Now majority, or if not all, of the fasteners I used for doing the actuators are going to be an M8. They're going to go into the bracket like you see there. I used some on the load bars and some in the body, but it's an M8 and it works perfect. You can probably use 5/16 as well. But for your drill bit size, I recommend getting a set of center hole punches. What this allows you to do is line up perfectly in the hole. That way you know you get a perfect drill bit spot every time you do the punch. If you use one that's the angled one that's really tight, you might be a little bit off and you can be a little wee-wall. There is some forgiveness in the clevis in there, but otherwise 21/64 is what I used for the entire project. Other than that, the main star of getting this done right is going to be a magnetic level, allowing you to affix it to the side. These are made of aluminum, but you can get it on there. You want to make sure that your trailer's level, everything's plumb. That way your actuators are not out of whack and can put things into a bind. Now I did make a special cross member to go in between, just to make my load bars basically stay together and move up in unison. You don't have to do that, but I did invest in some M12 bolts for attaching that, and I'll go over that in a little bit. Something else you may consider is going to be cabinet shims. This allows me to put them in here and have it positioned to where the load bars are not touching the inside at any point, and have them just really centrally located, and you can guarantee that everything's moving up and down. It also allows you, if you're not using the crossbars, to get your tin on there at the right point. That way you don't have one that's in a bind on the tubing. I think you get the point on that. Other than that, have a hefty drill bit, make sure your batteries are charged, and a lot of WD-40. That's it. And on to the wiring. Now, a little disclaimer, I'm not a professional electrician, so you will assume all risk and responsibility associated with your wiring configuration. This is merely a guideline based on how I did my configuration, but you can plug and play all the configuration here with your own size wire. Now, I have many years in this, so just to add some confidence in it, as long as you abide by 3 simple things to understand for rule of thumb: have all your connections, make sure they're nice and solid. 2, make sure you're using the properly rated wire for the circuit. And 3, make sure you're using a properly rated fuse for that total load circuit, plus 25%. That's simple, and it'll be fail and fire safe. Now, for added confidence here, we're going to reference our Blue Sea wire gauge chart so we know exactly what gauge to use for our circuit. In our case, basically, you need to know total length of wire for the circuit and the total load on the circuit. In our case, we're using our trailer. It's about 12 foot of wire that are used for the whole circuit. And for the linear actuator, they're rated at 5 amps each. Yours may be slightly different, but 5 amps times 4 actuators, that's 20 amps potential. We won't necessarily be using all of that potential, but you use the wire rated for the max potential. Because we only have about 250 pounds of load, and this is rated at 400 pounds, it's about half potential of the total load, but we'll factor for that. So knowing that 12 feet is less than 20 feet, which is 0 to 20 is the first line, 20 amps potential is 14 gauge wire, and that's what we're using for our entire circuit. Now you might notice that your linear actuator comes with a smaller gauge wire. That's totally fine. Just double check, 5 amps here, 16 gauge wire, that is 16 gauge wire. Now some of this length we will actually use for wiring within our circuit, and the way it's going to be set up is basically 10 amps combined between 5 plus 5 of the passenger side and then on the driver's side. So there will be a potential of combining 5 plus 5 equals 10. Well, you'll see that 10 amps here is still relative to 16 gauge wire. But once you go a little bit further, you actually see at 30 feet that 10 amps is capable of a 14 gauge wire. So it's okay to use a slightly bigger wire for some of the connections in the circuit. And for that, we're just going to use 14 gauge wire for the entire circuit. I have this as well as other PDFs for the configuration in this box. And all you got to do is abide by your total length and your total load, and you should be good to go. You just plug and play with your specific wire size. So you may only be using one of these, and your configuration may only require 16 gauge. So that's as simple as it is. Now, one really important note on your linear actuators, they have what's called a duty cycle, and it's the amount of operation time versus the amount of rest time. This one's rated at 2 minutes of run time with 18 minutes of rest time. So that works out to about a 10% duty cycle. Typical of a 50% duty cycle, if it was rated over 30 minutes, that would be 15 minutes of on time and 15 minutes of rest time. And a 100% duty cycle would be basically indefinitely, kind of like your ARB twin pump compressors. You can run those as long as you want to. So for reference, it takes 30 seconds for mine to rise and 30 seconds for it to come back down. That's 1 minute total. If I did that again, up and down, that would be 2 minutes. I would need to let it rest after that for at least 18 minutes. We want to get the best longevity out of these motors that we can. Now for the configuration of the box, I fixed everything with an industrial grade Gorilla hot glue. It allows you to just put it on there, it sets fast, and so far it's holding up great. You can use epoxy, liquid nails, anything you want to, and it just allows you to configure that. So what we used here is 5-pin relays right here, and they are already pre-wired, which is great because it allows you to go directly into your lever connectors. These lever connectors are awesome. Gone are the days of the butt connectors. This allows you to just go in, trim your wires, pop them in, and then just run out to all your configurations. You can do butt connectors. These things are not only inexpensive to use, but they're also reusable. So once it's used once, you can still come back and use them. Now what you'll also need is a on-off on or a single pole dual throw switch, allowing you to go down, neutral, and up. They do have momentary ones like this that you just bump. I went ahead and got the ones that are called a hold because these have a built-in switch in them. At the bottom, it'll automatically shut off, and at the top, it'll automatically shut off. So you can still come through and bump if you needed to, but there's no worries in that. You will need to prepare 3 wires of adequate to your load with a spade connection to go to the 3 pins here. That will be the only extra wires you need for this particular box project. Everything else is going to be either going out to the actuators or coming in from the battery. You want an inline fuse with a properly rated fuse. In our case, it is a 20 amp potential. Add 25% of that, that is a 25 amp fuse. This is a 15 for reference, I'm just showing this one. But we're not actually going to be using a 25 amp fuse, I'm going to use a 20 amp fuse because in the case that one of these should end up getting in a bind, I would rather it pop at 20 amps, figure out what the situation is so I don't continue to put anything into a bind on the trailer or break one of my actuators. I can simply fix the problem, come back and pop in a new fuse. You can do it that way or not. Definitely have yourself a battery that is capable of the load output that you're going to be doing. Ours is a 20 amp potential, and the battery that we're using is a 30 amp output battery. Other than that, all you'll need is maybe some marking utensils. I like to use black or silver. I have PG7 cable glands is what they're called, and that allows you to pass through here. And then I affixed it to the bulkhead wall using the same M820 connectors. You can do it any way you want to. And I just used little simple, these is what I use mostly, but this allows you to get into the area right there. So automatic strippers, and that's it. All right, hopefully this is a good angle of perspective to see how we assemble everything, because once we start snapping everything together, it's going to go real quick. More or less, we're going to do an exploded example assembly of exactly what's going on in this box. So I haven't trimmed anything, not anything more than actually taking off the end connectors and just twisting all of our wires tight. Just make sure that any of the wires that are going out to the battery and to the actuator are of the proper gauge for your load. Now, your relays, as they come, they're going to be pre-wired, or at least I recommend getting the pre-wired ones. And the blue, yellow, and red are going to be 12 gauge, which is more than adequate for our load. And then your black and whites are going to be the trigger source, which is low voltage, and it's still going to be adequate for this project. So what I want you to do is go ahead, take your marker and mark a positive and a negative on your relays. And then on your 4-to-1 junctions here, I want you to go ahead and do the exact same, positive and negative. This just helps minimize any kind of mistakes you might do for cross wiring. Now on your 1x1 bipolars, we're going to have one that we're going to write out. This is going to go out to the actuator, and this is going to actually connect into this. Anywhere that you see these is the place that you would have normally used butt connectors. Butt connectors are a thing of the past. This would have required 4 butt connectors for doing this project, which meant 4 crimping, and this is just too easy. So after that, you're going to take one and put SW for the switch. You're going to have your single pole dual throw switch. You're going to go ahead and have 3 wires like you see right here. That's going to connect to the poles on the switch, and then those are going to connect into the connectors as well. Over here we have a inline fuse set up to go on our battery, and then our battery power in, which is going to go through the negative and positive, and as you can see, positive and positive, and it all comes together. So let's get started. Move these out of the way. First, we're going to start with wiring the switch. Now the switch is going to work off the negative side. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up our negative, go ahead and click up all of our levers just so it's easy to enter. And we're going to take the 87A, the yellows, which would be the middle on your 5-pin, and you can put them into any one of those. Well, that one went down. Put these 2 next to each other just so it's easy to see. And then from there, one of these you're going to take and run to your switch. Get that in there. As you can see, we have yellow from one, yellow from the other connected. We're going to go ahead and flip that guy down. And this one is going to go to the ground, which is the middle one on your switch. Your switch is already almost done. Your negative feed is going to go out to your battery from there. Now on the other pole of your switch, you're going to take your switch connector, and we'll do that one in just a second. So from here, you're going to want to take the white from your positive, which is 86, and we're going to put it into the corresponding red, just to keep things positive and positive. And then you're going to take the black, which is the 85. You're going to go into this side. So now we have the positive white, which is 86, and the negative relay black, which is 85. And we're going to take that wire here. Doesn't matter which one you put it into. We're just going to make sure that we stick with white to white. Well, these are all black anyway because they're negative. All right, now this is what I meant by it doesn't matter which one you put it onto at first. So as we're going to put it on here, if you find that it's going out when you want it to go in, you just swap this terminal over to here and this one over here. Or if you have it marked anyway, this thing is loose. All you have to do is loosen up your tensioner and switch it around the other way and relabel as up and down. So now your actual switch is wired, ready to go. So on to the next step. So we have, now you can see a white, blue, and red from your negative, and a black, red, and blue on your positive. So for your positive, you're going to flip up all your lever connectors here, and you're going to take your 85 black from your positive relay and your blue 87 from your positive relay. They're connected. And you're going to take your white 86 and your blue 87 from your negative relay. Now that is done. Now you're left with two reds. One is going to be from the positive relay and one is going to be from the negative relay. And they're going to go to your out. So red to red or orange to red. And do that one. So negative, negative, positive, positive. And this is going out to your actuators. If you're doing multiple actuators, you have to do the separate junctions and step up and whatnot. But from here, as you can see, we're going to match red to red and black to positive. Now your actuator out is done. So actuator out, this is basically representing that wire that's running out to your box. Now coming from your battery, you have your, whoops, keep that there. We have your positive coming in from the battery, and we have your negative coming in from the battery. So now you're completely wired in the configuration of ready to go to your battery. And this is representing the wires that are coming out of these guys right here, out of the battery, and running as far as it needs to go for your battery source. Here we have our inline fused connection. And we're now connected 100%. And from there, all we have to do is switch on the configuration. And as you can see, one way does one way, and then if you put it in the middle, it stops, and then it goes back the other way. If you find that it's going opposite that you want it, all you have to do is swap those two poles. But that not only allows you to double check that this thing works, but you've confirmed that your circuit is exactly the same way. And I did all that just by referencing that real quick. So I know that this is a foolproof plan. It might look complicated like an octopus, but with these butt connectors or lever connectors, it makes it go so easy. Now from there, all you have to do is just pick a spot in between and you can run your drill bits. I used the 21/64 for the 8mm and then the 1/2 inch for doing the switches and the cable glands. And it was really just that simple. You can put it in any configuration you want. Mine's actually mounted into the side like that, and then you run your wires and you get the picture. So if you have any questions with this portion of it, don't hesitate to reach out. It's going to be a safe method of doing everything, and as you can see, it was really simple. Up next is going to be the hardware mounting of the linear actuators, followed by an overview of how I ran the wiring. For those of you who are not on a trailer application like this and doing something else, you can still use this as a reference for how I bolted things just to see how it worked out. But for those of you who are Smittybilt Scout trailer owners and plan on doing this, I have a full wiring diagram I developed by just taking a photo and referencing line and photos. It's really plug and play, less thinking on your end, more just putting things together. It'll be in a link for the Dropbox down below. If you don't know how to use Dropbox, just send me an email and I'll send those out to you, followed by a plan view of just kind of how everything is laid out. So the actual process of this is going to be really simple with simple tools. It does take a little planning, a little bit of brawn, but pretty much the drill is going to do all the work. So just take your time and it should be fine. What you do to one, you're just going to repeat basically 3 other times. Now that we're actually working on the trailer, I just want to let you know in the Dropbox, I will also have a Word document that has a full order of operation, a step-by-step process that should match along with this video and explain how I did it step by step so you can follow along, print it out, check off if you need to. Figured that would be nice to have. So the first order of operations that you're going to do is going to remove the reinforcement bracket from the outside of the trailer on both sides. It's going to be this little part that's right here that has a nice fancy Smittybilt emblem on it. That is actually an integral part for the structure of the trailer to increase the rigidity of it. We're going to reuse that on the other side, and it's going to be pretty much the last step of everything that you do and rebolt it back into place. The reason why it's the last step is where this particular bracket falls. As you can see, one of the bolt holes is right in line with the mirror side where you can see the where the silicone was. And if you put it on before or directly after and move it over, that bolt you won't be able to access and you'd have to remove it again. So I'm just saving you a step in the future. So removing that, all you'll have to do is take an X-Acto knife and go all the way down the outside of where you see the silicone. And then from there, once you remove it, you can come back with either a blade of some sort or a trim remover and just kind of chuff that extra silicone off. You probably won't be able to get it all off, but as you can see, that's the first step. After you remove the reinforcement bracket from the outside, you want to go ahead and remove your tie-down hooks. So there's going to be a hook on the inside with a bolted hook on the outside, one way or the other. And the reason why you need to do that is you won't be able to run the actuators with there. You're going to follow that up. You can go ahead and press in a 1/2 inch hole button, and that will cover that hole and make a nice waterproof seal. And now the real grunt work begins. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and remove the rooftop tent from your load bars. It's gonna make this whole process go that much easier without it on there. In fact, I don't even think you can do it that way. You might need an extra hand to do that because they're kind of heavy and you don't want to drop it. Definitely have your bubble level. If you haven't done so, go ahead and make sure that your trailer is level this way and level side to side. You might need your outriggers to go ahead and get that. If not, you can use a jack just the same. Reason for that is this bracket and this bracket, they're 90 degrees separated from each other. You want to ensure that they are both plumb when you do this project because you don't want your actuators being at an angle, and that could cause binding in your load bars whenever they're in the process of going up and down. Now, as you can see, it's very simple materials for doing this. Basically, the drill is going to do all the work. What I have is our 21/64, which is going to work for our M8 fastener. You might want to have like a 1/8 pilot bit. Once you get your center hole punch with the 21/64 done, you do the pilot bit and you'll follow up with that. Just make sure you use WD-40 or some kind of tapping oil. It makes things go through quite a bit easier. The 8mm fasteners are going to use 13mm socket or combination in wrenches. And then I have a set of hemostats like this you see here because it makes putting the bolts in the sleeve that much easier. And you're going to need at least one of the brackets for reference on this part. Next, you'll want to set your load bar height at the lowest point that you plan for it to be, and that's going to determine where your lower end bracket is. I found that this point right here with 1, 2, 3, the 4th hole down from the top positioned in the hole is as high as I want it to go. I couldn't go any lower because I have a bracket here for sliding in my table. You could potentially go lower if you wanted to, but that's as low as I need to go. And it still allows room for being able to slide tables and simple things up underneath there. And I still get the 10 inches of rise out to get me above 75 inches so I can walk underneath the awning without hitting my head. Now that all your load bars are set with the positioner at all 4 corners with 4 pins down is what I did. Whatever you choose to do is up to you. It's time to locate the upper bracket. Now to do so, what you'll need is your 21/64 drill bit, your bracket, one of your M8 fasteners and a nut, and the hemostats. Now at this point I realize I didn't actually record my first drilling portion of it, so I'm just kind of explaining around it, but I show pretty much everything else after that. So what you're going to want to do is with your hemostats, with the tent off obviously, you're going to drop it down and have it to where the bolt is hanging out of that hole. You're actually going to use this bolt that's already in the load bar as one of your fastener positions, and then you're going to drill a new hole right above that. So what you'll do, and I'm just going to give it an example on this side, is you drop it down and have it positioned on the part of the bracket that has the half moon, and you're just going to rest that bracket on the bolt, and then you'll take your nut and fasten it down to where it's tight. From there, you're going to take your bubble level, make sure again that your trailer is level side to side. This is where the side to side matters, and you're going to get it to where it's positioned to where the bracket is plumb and with a level trailer. From there, you're going to take your 21/64 punch, you position it into the middle of that, and then you're going to give it a nice strike, make that center punch, and from there you're going to unfasten the bracket out of the way, or maybe even slide it over to the side. You're going to come with your pilot bit, hit on that punch mark, and then follow it up with your 21/64. Go for about 2 or 3 seconds, hit it with WD-40, come back until it goes through. Once you complete that, then you can come back with your second M8 fastener and double check that one, you have the hole actually sitting and matching up with it, and you should still have a room amount for be able to fasten that up there. Then double check everything with the level to make sure once you fasten it down that is level. You will have a little bit of play in there to kind of tweak it one way or the other, and then you're done with mounting the upper bracket. You can go ahead and do that process on all 4 sides. Next is locating the lower actuator bracket. But before we have fixed the actuator into the clevis, there's a few prep steps that we need to do to ensure everything is nice, plumb, and level and will work properly. You want to take your cabinet shims and put them in between the square tubing and the load bar to ensure that it's centrally located in the tubing. You want to do that at all 4 points. Double check with your bubble level to make sure that it's still within plumb. If it's a little bit off, but as long as it's in between the lines, you should be good to go. Now, what you want to do is take your actuators and get a tape measure, paper and pencil, and document the dimension from end to end. I found that mine were either completely tightened down or they were quite a bit off. Now, if you don't double check that dimension, it's going to put your brackets at different heights and they will actually finish out at a different height. So go ahead, fasten them all down, all the way down tight, double check that measurement, and then just try to find a happy medium of all them being the same length without twisting out too far, because there's just a threaded shaft in there and there's a little bit of adjustment in there, but you don't want it at the top end of the threads to where it ends up coming off. So make sure that they are all the same lengths and you shouldn't have any issues with it going up and down and less chance for things binding. After that, what you're going to do, I found that if you use magnets like this, not only does that, if you're working by yourself, allow you to position things like that to where they don't move, and it's like having an extra hand. These also work well if you're using a drill bit. You put it underneath and it'll catch all the filings, especially if you're using WD-40. It gets kind of gunky, and you know, when you go to try to move that stuff can actually stick in your fingers and it sucks. So you have those just available for you. So what you're going to do here is you're going to go ahead and mount the actuator to the upper bracket. Make sure that it's at the closed length, or the least long length, and then you're going to attach your bracket in this position here with the U shape or the half moon facing up. Go ahead, put your clevis in there, and this is going to allow you to get the right position for where it needs to be. Then you're going to come in with your bubble level and double check that everything is level. Once you get that, you can use these positioners right here, or I say the magnets as a positioner, but once you double check that everything is plumb with the earth, you can go ahead and take your 21/64, stick it in that hole, give it a strike, then move the bracket out of the way, punch out your hole, and then you're going to flip the bracket upside down. You're going to take your M8 fastener, run it in from the inside or the outside. I did it from the inside out, and the nut on the outside, and you're going to let that half moon rest on that bolt. You're going to fasten it down to where it's nice and snug, but maybe enough to where you can move it back and forth, because we want to double check that this bracket is actually level to the trailer and everything else. That will ensure that you have a straight line and nothing's out of whack. It'll also allow you to push the clevis pins in without any binding issues. So once that's done, go ahead, get your 21/64, mark that hole, give it a strike, and this will pretty much ensure that your holes are the right distance apart and definitely level. You do have a bit of adjustment in this slot right here, but once you get that done and punch out that hole, you'll have 2 holes. You flip the bracket around, go ahead and fasten it down mostly tight, and you can position your clevis pin. I was not very smart whenever I did this because it was up whenever I did everything, but you want to put your clevis pin from this side facing out and have the cotter pin in. I can't actually take out the clevis pin unless I have this thing raised a little bit. Once you get that done, everything should ride in smoothly, and that's how you plan out your bracket just right. Now that you have your upper and lower brackets fixed and your actuators installed, because you didn't have any issues putting your brackets because I gave you great information on how to do it, the hard part is actually over. Next step is going to be affixing your cable glands to the body. So what this is a waterproof bulkhead connector. Allows you to drill a hole in the body, come back, it's got a little nut on the back side, slide it through, fasten it from the back side or on the inside of the body or a dashboard or something like that. And this cap is actually a tension cap, and there's a grommet on the inside, and when you tighten down, it squeezes on your wires and makes a waterproof connection. It also prevents the wires from chafing as they pass through the body. So what you're going to need to do here, where I located it seemed like a really safe spot to do. With your load bars lowered, you get a better reference, but I positioned it between the bracket and the load bar, and have it at the same level as the lower nut for the bracket. Just seemed like a safe spot. It was out of the way, it wasn't in the way of the big reinforcement bracket on the inside, and less chance that it's going to get hit or knocked off. So what you'll do, 1/8 pilot hole somewhere in between, it doesn't have to be specific, and then you'll need an array of drill bits all the way up to a 1/2 inch. Once you punch that out, all you got to do, put the connector in the hole and then fasten it on the back side with a nut, and you're good to go. All right, now to the fun part, the wiring. And I know some of y'all are fearing this portion, but I actually have a plug and play diagram that I have made a PDF that's going to be available, and all you have to do is trim to the connections that you need, and it's plug and play. It couldn't be more simple. So what you see right here is we have our example of our 16 gauge wire that came already equipped on the actuator, and it's running down and connecting to that connector there. Then we made a wire connection from these 2 points, red and black, using 14 gauge wire to connect to one of the ports of negative and one of the ports of positive on that one. We're going to call that a 10 amp connector or a 10 amp junction. Now in order to get this here, you're going to have to fish through using either a coat hanger, large heavy gauge wire, and you take your big loom of 17 foot red and black, attach it with tape, and then you pull it back through till you get about this much out here. From there, you're going to take this particular wire and you're going to put it into one and the other port, respectively negative and positive, and on the outlet port you're going to put the red and black positive respective, and then you're going to wrap that in electrical tape and send it down the chute. With the excess that comes out, once you get to about right here, that should be an ample amount, you can go ahead and trim that off. From there, you're going to prep the wires and you're going to connect one into here and one into here. That will complete this connection into your 10 amp junction. From there, you have your front actuator, which you should be able to go directly into without having to add any additional wires into the other available negative and positive ports. And that will complete your 10 amp junction. We use 14 gauge wire in between here and here. So from there, those two wires, we're taking a 1/2 inch drill bit, and at the back side of the square tubing, we went through there, there, exactly the same way all the way across, and I did one 1/2 inch on the top side of the square tubing in the back corner to go up. So that is going to combine into the back corner one there called the 20 amp junction. This is going to mirror exactly the same way there. Now once you get all your wiring connections up to this point right here, which is the passenger side 10 amp junction, you're going to do a little pup of red and a little pup of black to go into one or the other ports of the respective negative and positive, and the wire coming through this is going to go into the other two. The two wires that come out of there are the ones that are going to go down and up the hole through the cable gland and into your control box, and they're going to plug into the connection with the two red wires going into it coming out of the 30 pin on your relay. Now for running your battery, I did it right here in the bottom corner. Now be careful, all the way down the length of this box is a subframe about 1 inch over and right in front of where the end of the track is. It's out of the way of this slide, but that's where you want to go. You can kind of knock around on here where it's solid, here where it's not. In that corner there's not a spot there. Directly underneath is your lower control arm. You'll be able to go drop through there, cable gland, and there's a grommet that runs through the frame for all the trailer wiring for the lights. You run it through there, and then I used these magnetic connectors to run along the frame to kind of expand that along, and then went up through the plate just behind the tongue box. I didn't want to go through the tongue box because the cable gland is not long enough to go through the tongue box and the plate that it sits on. So I came up with a cable gland just behind the tongue box, and then another cable gland going into the tongue box, and made a little 90, and then went into with about 2.5 foot of excess wire out of the whole 17 feet. And then you can trim off from there. Your negative is going to go directly to the battery. Your positive is going to go to one of these little junctions like this, a 1x1 bipolar, and on the outlet side of it, you'll need to have your inline fuse. Don't put in your fuse yet. Make sure everything is good. Double check that you've wrapped all your your level connectors with tape to make sure they don't come back up. You can put on your split loom, however you want to do. Pop in your fuse and double check the action. It really can't be any more simple than that. I'm really happy the way that it turned out. All right, y'all, we are almost there, I promise. I know it's been quite the process, and this could very well be one of my longest videos, but it won't be due to lack of information, that's for sure. We've got a few more things to do before we throw in the towel. If you have not already reconnected the reinforcement brackets to the interior of both sides of the trailer, you can go ahead and do that now using your 8mm Allen. just going into the bolts. It just takes a second to kind of line up and thread in. Next, you want to prep your load bars for installation of your tent. You want to get your shims that you used earlier for positioning before putting on your brackets, and do that at all four corners, just making sure that the load bars are not contacting the outer sleeve. Now what I did is an extra step. In the process of making my brackets, I had everything already shimmed. I went ahead and measured from the interior, this side of the load bar, to this side of the load bar while everything was shimmed, and it was exactly 36 inches inside to inside. So I had a cross member made that fits directly in between. That ties both of the load bars together. Basically, they move in unison now. Before, they were independent of each other. In my experience, over a period of time, the tent would actually kind of go cattywampus on the load bars, and I'd have to reposition it. And I think that had a lot to do with just leverage in between the two and then moving independently. And hopefully that mitigates that. It was an inexpensive adder. I went to a local fabricator shop. They did it in about 30 minutes using 1.5 inch angle. I will have a schematic that I developed in CAD built just for it. The only thing you'll have to do is double check your interior dimensions there. It may be exactly the same. I fastened it using, I believe it was a 1/2 inch drill bit, and used M12 fasteners going through. It's 1.5 inch tubing, so you'll need to go just about almost 1/4 to a 1/2 inch further down than that. That way you can put a nut on there, and it seems to work out great. But I don't have to worry about my load bars moving back and forth. For those of you who do not want to do that, that is okay. Just make sure you shim first to make sure that everything is going to move up and down. Go ahead and bolt down your tent, and just keep an eye on it over a period of time and make sure that they're not in any bind. And that officially is the end of the last step. Well, that about wraps things up. Finally, if you enjoyed today's video, found it informative or helpful in understanding how to wire your linear actuators using the dual relay setup, moreover, how to affix all this equipment onto your Smittybilt Scout trailer for raising and lowering the rooftop tent, go ahead, give me a big double thumbs up. Let us know how we're doing. Share if you'd like, I'd appreciate that. For a heads up on any future installs or adventures, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, notification bell. You can follow us along our journey. Don't forget to check the description below, as I have a full list of Amazon affiliate links for all the equipment, tools, wiring that you see here today. And I'll also have my Amazon storefront link there, to where it'll go to a page dedicated specifically to this build, where you'll be able to scroll through all that, select your quantities, check in, check out, and get your build done. I'll also, in the bottom, we'll have the Dropbox link with all the PDFs, the step-by-step what to do, the wiring diagrams, and the CAD drawing for the cross member that you can bring to a local fab shop and have all that done. And I'll have my contact information for email. That way, if you have any questions with this project or any other projects, I'm always happy to help. Remember, we at Gator Overland encourage each and every one of you to take a daily moment to unplug and reconnect with the outdoors, even if it's just for a few minutes. Have fun, keep it safe, and just go. Thanks, y'all. It's hot here in Texas, man.